Morning, everyone. So in today's session, we will go through some insights related to database, some insights related to SQL. We'll not directly jump into query writing, all that stuff. We'll get started with what exactly the SQL is, why SQL is required, what is a database, how the information is gathered there. So the primary aim is to understand how the information, whatever data we would be working on, how is it stored in the background, how is it managed in the background. Now, just let's take a very small example. Now, we were discussing some superstore examples. We were discussing some medical store examples yesterday. So let's assume that you're trying to visit a superstore. I mean, you want to purchase some grocery from there. Might be a grocery, might be some snacks, might be some biscuits, or maybe some snacks or chips which you want to purchase. You try to visit any specific grocery store. Now, how do you manage that you want to purchase so and so product? Either you have it in your mind, or maybe you write it on a piece of paper that I want to purchase so and so product, and you directly visit that specific area, where designated area where all that items are kept, where all that products are kept. So that is how we try to directly visit that section where you want to purchase a certain component, right? So I mean, how that information is managed, we would be comparing that same example with database, that same example with SQL. How SQL and database are similar, and how that information are managed in the background. Now, what is the agenda for today's session is, the agenda is why do we need database? What are schemas are present in the database? What types of databases are present? Why SQL? What is SQL? Ways of processing the database. I mean, forget about what all these agenda is mentioned. We'll try to take an example, right? So as I've said, you are trying to visit any specific superstore, any specific maybe store, or maybe nearest local market. You want to purchase certain product. Now, this is just an example, right? So if you visit any specific store, usually all the products are kept in a set of racks, right? In a set of racks. It might be an iron rack, or it might be a plastic rack, where all the components are managed in set of, specific racks. So this is just an example. I'm trying to take an example of DMart. So you're trying to visit a specific DMart and you want to purchase certain products. Now, these are all the products. So every product is separately managed in different racks. Now, just take an example that I want to purchase a specific biscuit, right? I want to purchase a specific biscuit. Now, if you want to purchase a specific biscuit or a cookies, you try to directly visit that designated area and you try to pick up this product. Now, in a designated rack, there can be some 10, or it might be some 20 products which are kept. Now, if every person in the sense, there would be multiple people visiting the superstore. So if there are 20 people, 30 people who's trying to visit the superstore, and if there are only 20 products, or 20 number of products, or 20 number of items are kept in that specific rack, assume that there were 20 biscuits. Now all 20 biscuits are gone. All the 20 biscuits are gone. I mean, everyone has purchased all the biscuits. This rack is empty. This biscuits rack is empty. Now, a new person is trying to visit that superstore and you want to purchase a biscuit, the same biscuit, maybe some other biscuits, but that quantity is not available inside that specific area or in that rack. So what he will do, he will try to communicate with the person who is managing that specific area, maybe a person who is managing that superstore, that so and so product I want to purchase, but that product is not available in that designated area. Can you go back and check? So how that person is managing? So if some ABC person is visiting, and if that product is not available, he'll try to connect with the store manager, or he'll try to connect with the person who is managing that store. There might be multiple number of people who is managing. So if this is a store manager, now what he will do, he'll try to go back and get some additional products. Now, not every time all the products are kept directly in the racks, right? There is a limitation, 20, 30, 40, some number of products are kept. So if all the products are purchased, if all that products are gone, another 10 products or another 20 products are kept again. So the superstore manager will go back and get all the different products or the products which this customer is expecting, because all that products are already purchased. So he'll get some different products from the warehouse. Now, how is he communicating? He is communicating with the language. There might be certain language, right? He might be communicating in English, Hindi, or any other Indian language. So if he's trying to communicate, there is a channel, right? There is a channel which is going on between a person who is trying to purchase a product and the store manager. Once he understands, that store manager understands, he'll go back and get that products and he'll again place that products in that specific designated area. So there is a language, there is a communication between one person to a different person. Now, same goes with any product. Now, if a person is trying to purchase a product called, maybe he's trying to purchase any snacks. He's trying to purchase any snacks. Let's suppose a different person is coming. This is XYZ person. So he's trying to visit a specific superstore and he wants to purchase snacks. So the snacks which he want to purchase, all that snacks are not available. Yes, the billing tags or the price tags are available, but the quantity of that price tags or the quantity of the products which are mentioned in the price tag, that products are not available. So if that products are not available, he'll again reach out to store manager or he'll reach out to person who is managing that store again, and he'll say that, yeah, I want to purchase so and so product. Their barcode or their item number is kept there, the item name is kept there, but I don't think that product is available. Can you go back and check? Now, how is he communicating? He's communicating with the help of a language. He's trying to communicate with the help of some language. So there is a communication medium between one person to another person. Similarly, in case of SQL, same information is managed. I mean, information is managed in the same manner. So if you're trying to consider a superstore, you can consider a superstore as a database. Now, may not consider complete superstore, but in a superstore, there are multiple racks, right? There are multiple racks where all the items are kept. So you can consider that multiple racks or maybe a single rack as a database. So this rack, you can consider it as a database. Now, inside a database, the information is managed in different manner. So if you consider, let me take it a different color so as to easy to understand. Hmm. Hmm. So this is a database where all the information is kept. Now, inside this database, either the information is kept in a vertical manner or in a horizontal manner. So the one information which is kept from left to right, so the information from here to here, this is called as a row. This information is called as a row. And the information which is kept from top to bottom or bottom to top, whatever you assume, from top to bottom, this individual one condition, I mean, this is one row. This is row one, this is row two, this is row three. There are three rows. Now, the information which is kept from top to bottom, I mean, multiple rows are there, but in every row, there can be multiple columns as well. So a database is managed in terms of rows and columns. So this is one single database. Under one single database, there can be multiple tables. First thing is uppermost hierarchy is database. Under database, there is a table. And under table, the information is kept in a row format and in a column format. The information which is kept from top to bottom is called as a column format. This is column number one. This is column number two. This is column number three. Same is the process. If you want to keep any information, if you want to store any information in the database will have multiple tables in it. Right? If you visit a superstore, database is what? A superstore. Under superstore, there are multiple racks. So one rack will assume it as one table, and every table will have information kept in rows and column format. So this is how the behavior of a database is. In a database, I mean, we are trying to communicate with a certain language. We are physically going and visiting that specific designated area, and we're trying to pick up a product which we want to purchase. But in terms of database, this is all managed in the background without physically doing anything. Physically doing anything is what we have to do is we have to write a query for it. Now, how to write a query will not directly jump into that. Let's first understand what is the background structure of a database. Now, as I've said, database is your superstore. Under superstore, there are multiple racks. So every rack will assume it as a table. And under table, there are multiple rows and columns. The information is kept in multiple rows and columns. So row is one which goes from left to right. Column is one which goes from top to bottom. So there are three rows and there are three columns. Now, the big question is it all this called as a SQL? No, this is not SQL. SQL is nothing but, if you think this example, consider this example. If a person ABC want to purchase any product, that product is not available in that area, he will go and he'll ask that store manager that I want to purchase this product, which is not available. Can you go back and check? How is he communicating? He's communicating via certain language. So that specific language is called as a SQL here. Whenever you're trying to interact with any specific database, you are doing some communication, right? You want to do some communication with that database. So that communication is called as a SQL. That language is called as SQL. SQL is nothing but database. It is not a database. SQL is not a database. SQL is a way of interacting with the database. Database is some storage system. Under database, there are tables. Under tables, there are rows and columns. But how are we interacting with this database and tables is what we call as a SQL. We are trying to communicate with that database. We are trying to communicate with that tables. So that interaction is called as a SQL. That language is called as a SQL. SQL is not only database. It is just a communication medium which we want to communicate with that backend database. So I'll take a pause. Any questions on database, any questions on tables, or any questions on SQL? See, we have just covered a basic idea. We have just given a basic idea. Going further, in detail, I'll explain you how this information is stored, how we can manage it. But just to give you an idea that how database, how tables, and how interaction happens with the help of SQL. Any questions here?
No, sir.
Cool. That means I assume that you might have got what the database is, what tables are, and how do we interact with that. Now, this is this is all we are doing physically, right? You visit a store physically. You try to visit a store physically, and we are doing everything physically. Now, inside a database, there are two different ways of processing the information. Database is where all the information is kept, where all the information is stored. But there are two different ways. One way is, if you visit any superstore, every day there would be thousands of people visiting that superstore. So in one single instance, you cannot keep all the 1,000 products in one single instance, right? Maybe you'll keep 100 products. If that 100 products are purchased, again another 100 products will come into picture. Again, if that 100 products are purchased, again 100 products will come. So if that product is getting completely, everyone is purchasing that product. So what you will do, every time you will get the new product from the warehouse and you'll keep that product in that specific areas. So if there is a continuous communication, if there is a continuous change of information, right? The information is getting frequently changed because a person is trying to come visit that superstore. Multiple people are coming, purchasing a product. The products are going away. Again, you will get some products from the warehouse. Again, people are coming and purchasing. Again, you'll get that products from the warehouse. So this is a continuous process. So the information which is getting frequently updated, that specific information is called as OLTP. So there are two different ways of processing the database. One which is frequently updating is called as OLTP. Because if the best example is your snacks or your biscuits, right? These snacks and biscuit items are frequently purchased by any person who's trying to visit. So you cannot keep all that products in one single go, right? Every time a person is assigned to that specific designated area, he will go back and check whether the stock is present or not. If the stock is not present, he'll again visit the warehouse. So he might visit warehouse 10 times a day. Why? Because that products are frequently purchased. So the information which is getting frequently updated is called as OLTP. Now, what do you mean by OLTP? We'll discuss it in detail. But that same person, where is he getting that products from? He's getting that products from a warehouse. There is a warehouse in the background, right? Every superstore has a warehouse attached to it. So in the warehouse, there might be thousands or lakhs of products they might have purchased. They'll never purchase daily products, right? If they, I mean, if you consider an example of DMart or any superstore, what they'll do, they'll try to purchase lakhs of products in one single go, and they'll keep all that products in the warehouse. They'll not keep all the products in the superstore directly, right? From the warehouse, if the number of products are purchased in the superstore, they'll get that products again and again, again and again. So if the information is getting updated frequently, it is OLTP. There is one more component, or there is one more way of processing the database. OLTP is nothing but the way of processing a database. The information is getting frequently updated, it is OLTP. Whereas there is one more component which is not getting frequently updated, is OLAP. Now, this OLAP, you can consider an example of a warehouse. In the warehouse, there are lakhs of products purchased, right? So if a DMart is trying to purchase some biscuits, so what they'll do, they'll try to purchase from the some vendor or some wholesaler. They will purchase in a very bulk manner. So they'll purchase lakhs of products. So that lakhs of products are feasible for next 20 days or next 1 month. After 1 month, the information, again, they will think that, okay, the number of products are reduced in the warehouse. We need to go back and purchase it from the wholesaler. So the information in the warehouse is not getting updated frequently, right? They are purchasing lakhs of products. After that, all lakhs of products are getting completed. They're all lakhs of products are getting purchased. They'll again go back and purchase. So the information which is not getting frequently updated, after 30 days, after 40 days, it is getting updated. That information is called as OLAP. The information which is frequently updated is your front end store. If the products which are kept in the rack, because every day 10 times you have to get that products from the warehouse and you have to keep it in that designated area, because every time a person comes and purchase that products. But in the warehouse, after 30 days or after 40 days only, you think that the number of products are reduced. I have to go back and purchase it from the wholesaler. So the information which is not getting frequently updated is called as OLAP. Now, OLTP, the long form is online transactional processing, and OLAP is online analytical processing. We will discuss both in detail, but how this information managed, I mean, how this information flows is either in two ways, OLTP or OLAP. OLTP is updating on frequent basis, maybe 10 times a day or even 1 time a day is called as OLTP. Whereas OLAP is nothing but which is getting updated maybe once a week, once a month, or maybe once in 15 days, once a year also. So the information which is getting updated very rarely, it's called as OLAP. Right? So this was all about your database. This was all about your background database. Now, this everything, we are doing it physically, right? I mean, we are visiting that store, we are communicating with that store manager. This is all done physically. But in database, everything is done in the background. You need not visit anything. You need not, understand that this is the database. You need not view the database, but this is all done in the background. From the database point of perspective, this is all done in the background. Now, how that is done is, see, let's take an example of billing software. I mean, you visit a superstore, there is a billing software, right? So inside this billing software, how the information, this is how the billing software, I mean, a bill would rather look like. This is the final total. The below is the final total. Now, this front-end billing information, you can call it as a OLAP, because depending on your billing, your stock, you can manage your stock, what stock is kept in the warehouse. So depending on your complete billing, this is all about your OLAP. because your billing manages the complete the warehouse, the background warehouse management. Depending on your billing, how many products are purchased, how many products are available in the warehouse. So all that is managed with the help of front-end billing. Now, there is one more component called a schema. There is one more component called a schema. Now, what is the schema? So there are two types of schemas. First, understand what is schema, and then we'll jump into database, how the schema is related to the database. In schema, there are two types of schemas. One is physical schema, and one is logical schema. Now, this is related to database only. Schema is also related to database. Now, let's take an example, right? Now, what do you mean by physical schema? That store might have decided that I want to keep this certain product in certain designated area. So they will create a special area, or they'll create a special rack for that component which they want to keep, or maybe any the snacks, they want to keep that snacks in a specific area only. So they'll decide first. So wherever that specific area is decided, that area is called as a physical area. Area where all the items are kept is called as a physical area. Prior to that, they will decide, once that physical area is done, they will first think, where do we keep all these products? I mean, they'll create a designated areas, right? In certain area, they will keep all the groceries. In certain area, they'll keep all the clothing products. In certain area, they'll all keep all the cooking related products, all the snack related products. So there are different designated areas, right? So logical schema is nothing but they will first analyze where to keep which product. So that component is called as a logical schema. Physical schema is where do you keep it, and logical schema is how do you keep it. Where you want to keep, how do you want to keep, that is called as a logical schema. Now, the most confusing part in the database is your schemas only. You will have certain confusion, but in simple terms, physical schema is nothing but where you want to keep that product. Logical schema is nothing but how you want to keep, how you want to manage that product. Physically, you are keeping at certain area, but how are you keeping it? Maybe vertically, maybe horizontally, right? Rows and columns, everything is there. So how do you keep? Or how many products do you keep? If you want to keep 10 products, that is also logical. You're thinking, right? You're logically thinking that if I keep 10 products, that these 10 products should be purchased in next 1 hour or next 2 hours. So logically, you are going back and thinking that these many number of products, if I want to keep, so you decide, depending on your business, you decide how many products I want to keep in that specific area. So physical schema is nothing but how you are keeping that product in at which place, and how many number of products, or how you are keeping, whether horizontally, whether vertically, how you want to keep that product is called as a logical schema. So schemas are also related to database. Database has tables, table has rows and columns. And if that information is getting frequently updated, it is OLTP. And if the information is getting updated very rarely, it is called as OLAP. So this is all your database. This is all you want to learn on day-to-day basis. We would be learning all these concepts on everyday basis starting today. So this is all about your database. This is how a database works. I'll give you a brief highlights. Now, if I go to the next slide, see, let me give you an idea, right? So you want to communicate with all your database. I mean, whatever I've explained now, if you want to communicate with all these components, that communication channel is called as a SQL. SQL is not database. SQL is a communication channel. So if I go to the next tab, see, let's take an example. See, if you want to read this, can anyone read this? Can anyone read this? The only thing or only word which is understandable is this, the SQL word. There is something mentioned as SQL right here. There is something mentioned as SQL. Now, if you take the next line or the next language, which is English, it is very easy to understand, right? Now, it is very easy to understand. In the first component, this was not readable, but this is readable. Why? Because you know the English language, right? Same goes with the third component. Now, this is your Devanagari script. So you want to, almost everyone would have understood this. Most of you would have understood this.
Yes, sir.
But none of you would have understood the first the first condition. Why? Because this is not readable. Maybe for us, this is not readable. For some other people, maybe this is Japanese language. So the one who's from Japan, they can easily read it. The question is, how do you interact with database? It is with the help of SQL. SQL is a language to communicate with database. So if you want to communicate with database, you need to first learn that SQL language, how to write that language, and how to communicate with that database. That's the only thing which you want to learn. Prior to that, you should understand how a database is, how the information is kept. So we have already seen it. Database has tables, columns, rows, how the information is managed, OLTP or OLAP, or there are two different schemas, physical schema and logical schema. Physical schema is how a table structure should look like and how many rows and columns should be present in that. It is what your logical schema is. Right? So going further, this tab will give you why do we need now the information. Why do we need a structured? See, if I go back again, the information here is all kept in the structured manner, right? The information is, if the information is kept in rows, if the information is kept in columns, all the information is cleaned information, right? We are not dumping any information anywhere, wherever I want, right? I only want to keep all the information in specific designated rows and columns. So biscuits are kept in column 3, first row. The soaps are kept in third row, first column. This is third row, and this is first column, right? The snacks, you want to purchase lace. So lace are kept in the second row, first column. Now you want to purchase any namkeen product. Namkeen products are kept in the second row, second column. So the information is all cleaned, right? The information is all structured here. Information is very well structured. So you want to remove anything, you want to purchase, you want to keep anything. All this information is kept in a structured manner. So database is always a structured manner. The information kept in the database is always in the structured manner. And why database is structured? Because it is very easy to interact, right? If the information is in a well-structured manner, you can easily interact with whatever information is kept in that database, whatever information is kept in that table. So that is the reason it is very important to clean the data and keep the database in the structured manner. Databases are always structured. It is always structured. Databases are every time structured databases. Now, database is OLTP. In database, there is one more component, as I've said, it is OLAP, but OLAP is not purely database. OLAP, you can call it as a warehouse, or it is simply a data warehouse. Data warehouse and database, there is a difference between data warehouse and database. So we will discuss that difference at the end of this session. Let's not confuse getting all these words in one single go. First, only understand what is database, table, rows, columns, physical schema, logical schema, OLTP, and the way of communication is your SQL. You want to communicate with that database is called as a SQL. So what we covered? Let me mention all that points together. So we started with the uppermost hierarchy, which is database. Right? So inside database, there are multiple tables. And inside table, there are multiple either rows or either columns. And if the information is getting frequently updated, every time it is getting updated, every time, after every 1 minute or after every 10 minutes or after every 1 hour, it is getting updated, that information is called as OLTP. online transactional processing. And how do you communicate with all this information? You want to communicate, right? There is a language. You want to communicate with that database. There is a language between that database, which is called as SQL. This is what we discussed in last 20-25 minutes. This was the ideal idea. Right now, going back, all this information is in a structured manner, right? Because in a database, in a table, the information is kept in rows and columns. These are your columns and these are your rows. Information which goes from left to right is your row. Information which goes from top to bottom is your column. So remember all these names, rows and columns. Now, there are scientific names which are given in the SQL. Yes, in SQL, if there is a table like this, there are scientific names also. You can call this information as a row. This is row 1. This is row 2. This is row 3. So in SQL, rows are also called as tuples. There is a different word. You can call it as a row also. Even row is not a wrong word. But rows are sometimes called as tuples. And columns are sometimes called as fields. You can call it as a column also. There is nothing wrong in that. But columns are sometimes called as fields. These are scientific names which are given in SQL. These are all the scientific names. So do not get confused. So if someone is asking you a question, how many tuples and how many fields are there? Tuples is nothing but your row. Field is nothing but your column. So need not get confused. Okay, you can call it as a row and column. 99% of the people call it as a row and column only. But scientifically, there are different names in SQL that are tuples and fields. And all this information is in the structured manner, right? There is some structure. All this information is cleaned. All this information is, gathered with all certain components. Everything is gathered in a cleaned manner, or everything is structured manner. You need not compress, you need not dump information directly into database because everything is structured. You decide. So if you want to, uh, dump some information inside this table, you will dump at a specific location only, right? So you assume you want to dump that information at row 2 and column 2 position. So you will dump it here. You will never dump it some other location, right? You already decided that this is the row and this is the column. At this place only, I want to dump this information. Now, in SQL, in database or in terms of SQL, right? So you are trying to communicate with this specific table. You're trying to communicate with that database, and inside that database, there is a table. So let's assume this table is empty. There is no record present inside this table. There are 0 records. Now, the question is, I want to dump some information at R1, C3. R1 is your row 1, C3 is your column 3. So I want to dump this information here. I want to dump this information here. So what you will do, you will again communicate with that specific table. So how the communication happens? Communication happens via SQL. SQL is your language. So whatever you want to dump, you're dumping some information. That means you're inserting some information. So that component is called as insert. That component or that way, you're doing some insert to that table, right? At R1, C3 position, you're inserting some data. That is called as insert. Now, there is already a data present here, assuming that there is already a data present in R2, C2 position, which is row 2 and column 2 position. But I don't want this data. I want to delete this data. I want to remove it. So you want to again communicate with the database using SQL. So if you are communicating, I want to remove this, that means I want to delete it. Delete is also one command present in SQL. Delete is nothing but a word, right? In our language, we use words that come, go. These are all the words, right? So in terms of SQL also, insert is one word, delete is one word. Insert is what? You're inserting something, you're dumping something. Delete is what? There is already an information present in that database or a table. I want to remove that. So delete is a word present in SQL. Now, after 10 or 15 minutes, assuming that there is some information present in R3 C2 position. R3 is this, C2 is this. So there is already a information present here, some information. But this information, I think this information is not up to the mark. I want to update this information. Update is also one of the word present in SQL. So these words are called as commands in SQL. There are different commands in SQL. We'll not directly jump to what does this command mean, but in SQL, just like our language, every language has separate words. So in SQL is also a language. In SQL, there are different words. So every word has its own behavior. So if you want to interact with database or if you want to interact with table, you use that words. Every word has a significance. Insert is you're dumping information. Delete is you're removing information. Update is you want to change some information which is already present, but this is not up to the mark. I want to change it in a different manner. I want to make this information to look in a different manner. That is called as update. So SQL has multiple words that every word is called as a command because you are commanding that specific table that this is my command, try to insert a record. This is my command, try to remove or delete a record. This is my command, try to update or change the information which is already present. So you're commanding that table, you're commanding that database. So that command is called as that way of interaction is called as a commanding to that database, commanding to that table. Right? So any questions up till now?
Ritesh.
Go ahead.
In SQL, so I thought we always extracted the data. So after this, so it means we can delete, we can insert, we can edit the data also, right? As per
Yes,
session.
you
Okay.
can do whatever you want. Now,
Okay.
we are only discussing about table. If you do
Mm,
not like this table itself, forget about the information present inside the table. You do not like this table itself. You can delete that table also. You can completely remove the table as well.
okay.
There are different commands. I've only given you three commands. These three commands are frequently used. That's the reason I'm giving an idea about three commands. If you don't even like this table structure, I don't like this table structure. I want to create a new table. If you want to remove the existing table also, you can remove that table and you can create a new table also. There are multiple commands in SQL. Just I've given you an idea that there are three commands which are frequently used. Apart from these three, there are multiple other commands as well.
So OLTP means it will get updated in real time, is it? So we
Yes,
can call it as real time also.
real time or which is getting updated very frequently every day. The
Oh.
best example of OLTP is you try to visit any ATM and your bank balance is some 10,000. So you withdraw some 3,000 from it. So that 3,000 should be updated in your bank records with immediate effect, right? Now you withdraw some 3,000 from the ATM, and again after 5 or 10 minutes you withdraw some 10,000. If that information is not updated in the database, you can again withdraw some 10,000, right? If that information is updated frequently, immediately if that information is updated, when you withdraw first 3,000, the balance should be ideally 7,000. So that is called as a frequent update. That frequent update is called as a transactional processing. There is a transaction going on between you and the bank server. So you withdrawn first 3,000, your balance is 10,000. So 10 minus 3, it should be ideally 7,000. But if that information is getting updated after 1 day or 2 days, which is lost to the bank, right? You can again withdraw some 10,000. So the information which is getting frequently updated is called as OLTP. Frequent update, frequent update. The best example again, okay, ATM is a common example. You try to book any specific movie ticket, right? You're trying to book a movie ticket. So there are some 500 seats in that movie, in that theater or in that multiplex. So a person is trying to book certain seat. There might be 10 people looking for that same seat also, right? So one who ideally completes the transaction first, that seat would be allocated to that person, right? If that person, if XYZ person is trying to book seat number 3 or seat number 4, which is the best view seat. If another person is also trying to purchase, or another person is also trying to book that same seat, one who makes that transaction fast, that seat would be allocated to that person. You cannot allocate that seat to some other person, right? If a same seat is allocated to different people, it would be an issue, right? Same person cannot sit on same seats, right? Multiple people cannot sit on the same seat. So the information should be frequently updated. That seat should be immediately blocked if anyone is trying to make a transaction first. So that's how the information is getting updated frequently. That information, you can call it as a OLTP. That specific information is called as a OLTP. The information which is getting updated very rarely in the sense, see, information will get updated, but it is getting updated after some duration. So let's take an example of your Zomato. I'm trying to take an example of Zomato. Since last 1 month, you have purchased, you have ordered multiple food items from the Zomato. So what Zomato will do, depending on your historical data, they will give you some suggestions. They will give you some recommendations. That since last 1 month, you're ordering certain product. Maybe you're ordering pizza on weekly basis. So in one of the week you didn't order pizza, they will give you certain discount that since last 15 days we are observing you haven't purchased a product which was frequently purchased. So we will give you certain discount. So how are they giving you discount? They are going back and analyzing all the previous history. So previous history will never change, right? It will be as it is. Information which is not getting changed or information which is getting rarely changed, that information you can call it as a OLAP. OLAP is online analytical processing. So there is some analysis done on that data. Depending on that analysis, you will certainly take some decision, right? So what Zomato will do, go back and check all your historical data. Your all Depending on your historical data, they will analyze something that you purchase so and so product frequently. We will give you certain discount since last 15 days you haven't purchased that product. So that analysis is called as OLAP. In database, analysis is very rarely done. It is frequently updated. If information is changing, update it. If information is removed, delete it. So frequent update, frequent delete, frequent insert are called as OLTP. Information which is which is as it is. Your historical data will never change, right? It will be as it is. Or the information will rarely change. So that information you can call it as a OLAP. Right? Any questions up till now? Any questions? Okay. Assuming that there are no questions. See, all the further slides are all read-only slides. The reason why I don't go through all these slides is you will get confused. Further slides are all read-only. So from this slide, why do you need a structured information? Dictionary is one of the best example. You visit any specific Wikipedia page, even that Wikipedia page, the information is all in a structured manner. Now, why structured information is required? Because it is very easy to understand the structured information, right? You take a book. Now you're trying to read this book, but I don't want to read everything in this book. I want to read a specific section. So how do you read it? You first visit that index page. From that index page, you try to analyze, you try to first think, this is what I want to read. You'll directly jump to that page. And how you can directly jump? Because the information in that book is all kept in the structured manner. Same goes with your dictionary, right? You want to search a specific word, meaning of that word, you can directly jump to that page, right? Because the information is all structured. Now you visit a library. I want to read maybe I want a reference book, a reference book related to data analyst. So would you visit that library and would you check each and every section of that library? You will directly go to the library and you directly go to that section where all the data analysis related books are kept. Why? Because the information is in the structured manner. So why do we need the structured information? Structured information is where it is very easy to understand, easy to interact, and whatever information you're trying to fetch, it is very easy to extract also. That is the reason we should keep all the information in the structured manner. So database is all structured. Database is all structured. So these are all again read-only slides. I don't want to keep all these slides again and again. But if you go through all these points, this will give you a basic idea. See, I've said either you can add, either you can edit, or either you can delete the information present inside that database or a table. Table is inside the database only. A database can have multiple tables. So why do we need database? Database can store large number of records. Yes, it can store large number of records. You can connect that database to any website. You can connect it to any website. Web interface is also there. You can easily share and collaborate the data using database, right? If a database is created, anyone can access the database, one who has credentials of it or who has been given access to. So it is not that only you can access. You can share the database with some other 10 people also. So that benefit is also there. You can share the database. So why do we need to store the information, to store large number of records? How you can store, how you can communicate with the help of SQL. Either you give a command to that database, either you insert, update, delete. There are many other commands also. Insert, update, delete are frequently used. And that same database can be shared with multiple set of people. You cannot only manage it. Maybe some other 10 people can also manage, some other 10 people can also access that same table or a database. Right? So that is the reason nowadays everything which is present in the background of a website is all connected to a database. Database is what? All the information is kept in the structured manner. And the next example, see how the information is stored in the database. Either it is stored in the table format. So table is broken into multiple small entities, which are called as rows. Rows are also called as records. Rows are also called as tuples. Columns, as I've said, columns are also called as fields. Columns are also called as fields. So this is the example. This is your table. This is a row. This is a column. So this is all read only. Now coming down to schema. We already discussed schemas, right? So physical schema is, it defines how the data would be stored. Logical schema is how many tables are there, inside the table, how many records are there, how many rows are there, how many columns are there. That is your logical schema. Physical is what, where do you want to store? Logical is what, how do you want to store? So schema is nothing but a skeleton. It is the skeleton structure of the table or a database. So in a database, if you are trying to create a database, that means you are, maybe you're keeping aside some space. So inside that space, how a database should look, where do you want to store that information? That is your physical. But once that physically database My bad. I guess there was a network issue. It got disconnected. Let me reshare my screen. Okay. So we discussed about schema. Now I'll only take next 10 minutes. Why SQL? Why not any other language? See, we discussed SQL is nothing but a language to communicate with the database. Now, if you want to communicate with yourself, there are multiple languages present in the world, right? Maybe you are communicating with some person in English. Maybe you're communicating with some person in Hindi. Maybe you're communicating with some other person in your own mother tongue. Might be Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil. might be Gujarati, Punjabi, whatever language, Bengali or Odia. So you want to communicate with some other person, you are communicating with multiple languages. So in database also, SQL is not only the language. If you want to communicate with database, there is a language called as Python. There is a language called as R. There is a language called as SQL. There are multiple other. There is a language called as PySpark. So there are multiple languages which you want to communicate with that database. But why we need to choose SQL only? Why not any other communication language? Why we want SQL? So that is what I would be discussing in next 5 minutes, and then we will wind up this session. Why only SQL is, see, SQL was introduced back in 1960s, 1970s rather. I'll give you a history of SQL. It was introduced in 1970s. It was developed by IBM. Anyone who is working in IBM was part of this batch or session, who works for IBM, who worked for IBM previously? Anyone? Even people working in IBM doesn't know that SQL was introduced or SQL was developed by IBM scientists only. So it was developed in 1970s. It was developed by these two people, Chamberlain and Boyce. So it was ideally called as SEQUEL. The complete name of a SQL is SEQUEL. They have reduced it to 3 letters. Why? Because they have removed that 3 vowels. E they have removed, U they have removed, E they have removed. So they have kept S, Q, and L. That's it. That is the reason it is called as SQL. But in long term, it is called as SQL. SEQUEL. Now, why only SQL is? See, take an example of this chart. These are all the languages which can be used to communicate with the database. You can communicate with the help of Spark also. You can communicate with the help of Hadoop. Hadoop is also communication medium. You can also communicate with the help of Hive. You can also communicate with the help of R language, Python language. But why only SQL? Even though SQL was introduced in 1970s. 1970s what? Almost 55, 56 years back. So since last 55 years, SQL is still the market leader. Why? Because SQL has many advantages as compared to any other data language which can be used for communication with the database. SQL is the fastest. SQL is the best mode of communication. Now, you might like a certain language, right? You're staying in India, you might like your own mother tongue. But there are also many other languages which you can use to communicate. Similarly, database likes SQL because it is very easy to interact with the SQL with the help of, if you want to communicate with the database, it is very easy to interact with the help of SQL rather than Python, rather than R, rather than Spark or any other language. So that is the reason SQL is still the market leader. SQL is still the market leader. 60-70% of the time people end up using SQL if they want to communicate with the database. Sometimes you can use Python, sometimes you can use R, but that are not efficient, that are not as good as SQL. So that's the reason people end up using SQL most of the times if you're coming to the database, if you're coming to the table structures. Now, right, so SQL, if any product is getting introduced, that product, that specific product, it would be given certain approvals, right? So this SQL is a approved ANSI, which is American National Standard Institute, approved in 1986, and it is also a ISO approved language. It is also an ISO approved communication medium, right? You try to purchase a product. For that product, you will always go back and check whether there's a ISI mark. From the Indian point of view, you always check there is a ISI mark or there is a AG mark present of that product. That means you assume that if there is a mark, ISI mark or AG mark, that product is a valid product. Similarly, SQL is also a valid language. It is approved by two main international organizations, which is ANSI and ISO. Even though it was introduced in 70s, but after 15 years, the organizations felt that this is very important language. We have to go back and research on it, and we have to give certain approvals for it. So SQL has got the approvals as well in 1986 and in 1987. So this is all the background about SQL, a language to communicate. Now coming down to OLAP and OLTP. Let's not confuse all these things in one single go. See, there are different languages. Now let's segregate this, right? So if you are learning English, English is one language, Hindi is one language, right? So there are some South Indian languages. These are all South Indian languages. Yeah. So every language has its own significance, right? So English is what? Your Gregorian or Greek script, right? Hindi is what? Your Devanagari script. Telugu, Kannada, Tamil are all your Dravidian, more kind of Dravidian languages. Similarly, in OLTP is nothing but the information which is getting frequently updated. So in OLTP, there are different languages. SQL is the primary language. But inside that SQL, there are sub-dialects also, right? So if you're speaking Hindi in northern part of India, there are sub-dialects also, right? Hindi in UP and Bihar is different. Hindi in Rajasthan is different. Hindi in Delhi is slightly different. The slang is different, right? So in similar terms, in OLTP, there are, whatever you are communicating, all that is nothing but a SQL only. But in SQL, there are different slangs also. So MySQL is nothing but it's a product of Java. It's a product of Sun Microsystems. PL SQL, it is a product of Oracle. Oracle is the owner of that PL SQL, but it is SQL only. You are collaborating, you are combining that SQL with a different slang. T-SQL is a product of Microsoft. It's a product of Microsoft. So Microsoft will define slight different slang with the help of SQL. PostgreSQL, it's a different product. But all these products are part of SQL as a language. So this is one slang, this is one slang, this is one slang, and this is one slang. Whichever language you are using, the common instance here is SQL. So SQL is common in all these languages. SQL is common in all these languages. You are interacting with database with the help of SQL. If anyone is speaking, can you go on mute? So these are different slangs. Now same goes with OLAP. In OLAP, usually what do you mean by OLAP is, in simple terms, it is a warehouse, the information which is kept in the warehouse. Warehouse information is not getting updated frequently. Database information gets updated frequently, but warehouse information doesn't get updated frequently. Why? Because warehouse can hold lakhs of records or millions of records. So if millions of records has to be updated, it will be getting updated after 1 month or after 20 days or after 10 days, but not on daily basis, right? If the information is getting updated on the daily basis, that means that information should be in the database. But information which is not getting updated, it should be in the background warehouse, which is a data warehouse. So in order to communicate with data warehouse, SQL is not right. You can use SQL, but SQL will slow down the process. So in order to improve the efficiency, in order to improve the communication medium with the warehouse, there are different languages. Hadoop, Hive, Spark, these are different languages. OLAP is nothing but your historical data, your data warehouse, where all your historical data is kept. If you want to connect with the historical data, SQL, you can use a SQL to connect, but SQL will slow down the process. Whereas to improve the efficiency, that's the reason some different languages were introduced. That languages are called as Hadoop, Hive, and Spark. These are all the big data languages. SQL is not a big data language. SQL is the straightforward, easy to interact database language. Whereas if it's a big data or a data warehouse, in that case, Hadoop, Hive, Spark, all these languages comes into picture. So this was all about OLTP. This was all about OLAP. Now these are all the examples. OLTP example, OLAP example. And if you want the basic difference, this is the basic difference between OLTP and OLAP. Wherever there is a large volume of data, it is OLAP. Wherever there is a short volume, I mean, you cannot call a database as a short volume, but a database cannot handle millions of records in a very easy manner. If it's a database, that means if it's you want to communicate with the database, it means it should be a SQL. Whereas if it's a large volume of data, you can dump it into warehouse. And you see the response time. The response time for a SQL is in milliseconds. OLTP is nothing but your SQL. Whereas OLAP response is seconds to minutes. Sometimes it will take few minutes also to get the information from a warehouse, because the warehouse will have millions of records, millions or even billions of records. So OLTP and OLAP, this is the basic difference. Now, there are some other terminologies with respect to SQL. There is a SQL, there is a NoSQL also. Let's not confuse here what is SQL, what is NoSQL. We'll discuss in next sessions. But until today, we covered database, we covered why only SQL, we covered OLTP, OLAP, physical logical schemas, how a table structure is, rows, columns. That was all about your database. That was all about your communication medium with your database, which is nothing but your SQL. Right? So we just started with SQL, we just started with database, how to connect that database, how to interact, how to see I'm trying to explain you something. That means I'm trying to explain you in a certain language. So the language which is understandable by you people is an English language, because I can communicate in English and you can also understand in English. So similarly, if I communicate with database, I have to communicate with the command. So I have to write that command. Depending on your command which is written, it will communicate with that table or it will communicate with that database. So that is what we would be learning starting tomorrow, how to write a command. Okay, now I'll take a pause. Before taking a pause, let me also highlight one more thing. Give me 1 second. So now what is this course about? We might have discussed yesterday, but for the people who have joined in today's session, this course is all about end-to-end Power BI with your Azure and with SQL. See, you take any course in KSR, usually every course is combined with SQL. SQL is must, because you are entering the field of data. Data means SQL. SQL is nothing but the communication channel. You need to know SQL. So we would be starting with SQL, which is nothing but your database. End to end, we would be covering. I mean, depending on today's session, you might have got an idea how depth we are going and how basic we are trying to cover. We would be covering Power BI. We would be covering Azure Data Factory, which is nothing but your cloud, which is used for ETL purpose. Along with that, there are few dependent services which are frequently used. So all that dependent services in touch with ADF, we would be covering. And at the end, I will give you a basic idea what is Databricks, how you can use it, what is Synapse, how you can use this Synapse with respect to a Power BI developer, what is Logic Apps, or what is Power Automate. I am not going to cover complete Power Platform, only Power Automate, which is used for automating certain updates or email alerts. I would be covering with the help of data analysis perspective. That means not in-depth basics I would be covering with respect to all three components. Along with this, in this session, we would be going through domain knowledge. Now, whatever we discussed today, it was all about your retail domain, right? You visit any website, you visit any superstore. That superstore is nothing but your retail business. So we covered, I mean, we might have got a certain idea. You might have got a certain idea about retail business. So along with that, we would be covering multiple domains also. Might be healthcare domain, might be your banking domain. So every domain's knowledge, I would try to share it in between. We would also have project management sessions. These are all non-tech sessions. So resume building, interview preparation, all this would be from the KSR's end. The duration of this course is 4 months, complete 4 months. We started with the month of March now, start of March. So March, April, May, June. Ideally, we target June end or first week of July. That is where we would close this 1 month of SQL, 2 months of Power BI, and 1 month of Azure. 1, 2, 1. 1 plus 2, 3, plus 1, 4. 4 months is the duration of this course. Again, there are still 3 more free sessions available in next week. Duration is, as I've said, 4 months. Timings are 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. in the morning. Monday to Friday. The non-tech sessions would be somewhere in weekends. Usually on weekends, I won't take any session until and unless if there are any project management or domain knowledge sessions to be taken. Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. 4 months is the duration. Now, with respect to course fees, what is the course fees, right? This complete session fees. So this course is, as I've said, this course is developed in such a manner that we would be giving you Power BI Premium per user certificate, which would cost us $20 per user per month, which is somewhere 3,200. Minimum 3,200 Indian rupees. So the complete course cost is 27K if you want to make a payment in one single go. Ideally, the cost of the course is 30K, but this 30K can be paid in 3 different installments. 10, 10, 10. You make one payment, it is 27K, and you try, I mean, you don't want one payment also, and you don't want 2 payments. I don't want 3 payments. I want to make in 2 payments. In 2 payments or in 2 installments you want to make, it is 14K. So this is the complete idea about course. 4 months, morning 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Monday to Friday. Now, I'm open for questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Hi, this is Sagar here.
Sagar.
Yeah, I have almost like 13 years of non-IT experience, 13 years. So, will that be okay to learn and get a job in this particular streamline?
See, this slide will answer most of your questions, but to answer you in one single sentence, yes, you can. I mean, with this course, if you're taking this course, you yourself can show minimum 3+ years of experience in Power BI and Azure. Minimum SQL, Power BI, and Azure. So if you feel that you're comfortable enough, you're all 13 years of experience, what we would do is in resume preparation, there would be resume preparation sessions also, or
Mhm.
there would be a dedicated team which will help you to prepare your resume. So if you're all 13 years of experience is a valid experience, even though it's a
Yes,
non-tech
yes, valid.
experience. Yeah,
Yes,
even though
yes.
it's a non-tech, we
Yeah.
can showcase that you worked for a few years as a non-tech and then you move to a technical exposure with SQL and Power BI. Since last 5 or 6 years, we can showcase that. So
Oh,
even,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
you yourself can enter this field as an experienced person.
Okay. I mean, the companies will accept this kind
Yes.
of scenario, right?
If you are able to clear the interview, no
Yes,
company
yes.
will go back and check whether you were working as a technical guy or a non-tech guy. What they will check whether you are a part of that org or not. That's it.
Correct, correct. That is it. Yeah, yeah. Right. Thanks.
Any other question?
Sir,
Go ahead.
this is Geeta Lakshmi.
Hey, Geeta.
So, in the case I am a fresher, so
Hmm.
how would be helpful for me while
Okay.
building resume?
See, resume building. We'll definitely help you. That won't be a big problem for you. Now the question is why this resume is required to enter the market, right? You want to get a job. Let me highlight one thing. See, if you're a fresher, not only with respect to any course or not only with respect to any expertise, if you're a fresher, there would be slightly higher chance of getting neglected by the organizations in any field, not only data analysis. See, the thing is, once you complete this course, we would ask you to create some projects. Whatever projects we would be creating, you can utilize that same projects. You can showcase that same project in your resume as if you have created. So you have to give them I mean, maybe you have to show them that this is what I have done. I have experience. Even though I am a fresher, I have a good understanding of SQL and Power BI. You have to gain them a trust that I can work. Whatever work you would be giving, I can handle it. But to gain a trust, it would take certainly slightly higher time as compared to experienced person. Because if you have any prior experience, we can showcase it as a Power BI. Even though it's a tech or not tech, it is easy to show that previous experience. But if you're a fresher, slightly higher chances of neglecting is there, but still we will help you. There would be placement sessions cells or placement cells conducted by our KSR team. Usually it is conducted by Mahesh, who is completely managing this KSR team on weekly basis. So what is the current market? How the trend is? You can ask any questions. If you join that placement cell, you can ask that I have attended so-and-so interview as a fresher, but I'm not getting any frequent calls, or maybe the interview is not getting cleared. We will definitely try to answer that question. We'll try to give you a solution to that. The thing is, you have to put the effort from your end. Certain, I mean, upper hand or upper effort should be there from a fresher perspective. Because you are new to this field, you have to gain a trust. If a trust is gained, you will definitely get a job.
Okay, okay, sir.
Hi, Deepa here.
Hey,
So
Deepa.
Fabric is not part of this course?
Yeah, this is a part of this. Let me go back.
Okay.
See, this is what the Fabric is. In case of micro Power BI, we would be covering Fabric also. Fabric is nothing but a combination of Power BI service and other Azure cloud services in one single area or in one single designated umbrella. Everything are captured, everything is coupled in one single place. We would be covering Fabric. Without
Right.
Fabric, there is no Power BI. So
Right.
we would be covering.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions? Kamlesh, if you're trying to speak, I'm not able to hear you. Maybe you can type your question. If any other questions with respect to this course or curriculum. Now, yeah, as I've said, if you want to access these recordings, there are two ways. Let me show you that both the ways.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question, sir. Sir,
Sure, go ahead.
if I learn SQL and Power BI only first of all, then can I apply any job?
You can, but I assuming that you attended yesterday's session, I remember your name. Why cloud is important is, see, nowadays everything is on cloud. The thing is, if you only attend SQL and Power BI, yes, would be beneficial. I'm not saying. But if you have a cloud in your resume, chances of getting shortlisted is more. Shortlisting is more because you know cloud. And let me highlight one thing. If we are in 2025 anyways, in next 1 or 2 years, or maybe next 3 years, assume by 2028, if you do not know any cloud, if there is no cloud exposure in your resume, that means your resume is nothing but it's a dump. It's a small piece of paper. That's it. It is of no use. You should know one single cloud, any cloud. I'm not only saying Azure. Why we are going with Azure is Azure it's a product of Microsoft. Power BI is also a product of Microsoft. That's the reason we are going with this. But you should learn any cloud. If you learn any of the cloud, all three clouds are same. All three big clouds, and there are multiple cloud services, not only three, but AWS, Amazon, the AWS, the Azure, and GCP are the three big cloud providers. But if you learn any cloud, all three clouds are somewhere related to each other. The names are different. The internal service names are different. So the reason why we included cloud, if you go back and check my minus 2 years, if you go back 2 years back, even KSR sessions didn't had any cloud in it. Only SQL and Power BI we used to cover. But since last 1.5, 2 years, since last 2 years, we are covering cloud also because cloud is very important in current market. You should know cloud. Without cloud, there is nothing.
Okay, sir. But Snowflake is important, right?
Snowflake is just a database.
Okay.
It is just a database. Just like you have a SQL database, Snowflake is nothing but where all your SQL information can be stored. Snowflake is a combination of SQL as well as big data combined together. I'll give you one more example. There is a database called as Custos, which is internal to Microsoft, but it is publicly available, similar like Snowflake, just a storage medium. Snowflake is just a storage medium.
Got it, sir.
I have one more question. So how much we are going to cover business analysis concepts? Like yesterday it was there, but here today I could see nowhere it is mentioned.
Okay. Business analysis. See, business analysis means first a business should come into picture. That means certain domain should come into picture. So you want to understand that business, and depending on that, your decision should be made. Today, we only considered one retail chain. As and when we progress ahead, if any domain comes into picture, there we will do the business analysis. Business analysis cannot be done anywhere until unless you feel that there is some domain or a business coming into picture, right? Whatever example we have taken, how that data warehouse management takes place, how the information is managed in the superstores. That is nothing but your data analysis, your business analysis. We would be covering that, not on a daily basis, but wherever a domain comes into picture, retail, banking domain. In that case, the business will come and business analysis will come.
Okay.
It is nothing different apart from data analysis. Data and business analysis is one and the same. Data is business is certain business. Assume that you're working in a bank. So bank is one business, but inside that bank, there is multiple information. That information is called as data. So you are analyzing business also, you are analyzing data also. Business analysis, data analysis, both.
Okay, got it.
Sir, what type of questions they are asked, like as a freshers beginner level, a cloud and data analytics?
So you want to give interview in next 5 or 6 days only? Are you? We have just started with SQL. What type of questions? See, from a fresher point of view, the questions, see, going further in between sessions also, what type of questions can be asked, I'll definitely highlight. From the SQL point of view only, within next 20-25 sessions, which I would be covering with respect to SQL, you will get around 50-60 questions in the sessions itself. I'll be sharing the SQL interview questions separately, but within the sessions itself, I'll give you an idea how questions can be asked with respect to SQL. So if you directly jump, you want to eat something, and if you're directly eating everything from the plate, it is very difficult. So start with basic. Many questions, you can expect many questions from a fresher. See, nowadays, even freshers are also asked some difficult questions. You should be aware about basics.
Yes, sir.
Harshal has a question that in Microsoft Fabric, we would be covering ETL. After completing this process, we'll be able to create dashboard. Yes, you can create. Dashboard is what it is. Report is what we have to create in Power BI. So we would be covering ETL and Power BI, everything in detail. What type of Power BI license you provide? I mean, from the R end, we usually provide Power BI premium license, which is premium per user. As I've said, it's a $20 per user per month. Usually the license is shared from our end for 2 months. there is a very high chance that you can still extend it with the domain email ID, which we would be giving from our end. So there is a question from Rajeshwari. What is the difference between on-premise and on-permission and gateway? Might be your question is wrong. What is on-premise gateway and what is your local gateway? Gateway is nothing but a communication medium between your laptop and your Power BI service. You want to communicate with your Power BI service, which is on cloud from your local system. It is nothing but a communication medium. Just like we have SQL, right? So gateway is nothing but a communication medium between Power BI service and your local system. That's it.
Sir, I
What is difference? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Ganesh, and my question is like, let's say if we start with data analyst in our organization, so what is the end like what are the next steps in our career growth?
Okay. So next step, see, there are different fields. Data analysis, maybe to simplify your question, data analysis is what you do some analysis of data, you do some massaging of data, and you give certain important numbers to the business so that business can take up and improve their efficiency or improve their market presence. Along with data analysis, there are some other different roles also like data engineering, data scientist that are slightly different roles. Now the question is, if you want to be a data analyst, you have to have a SQL knowledge first. You can survive in any market with SQL. If you have SQL knowledge, assume the Power BI is market leader now. For next 5 or 10 years, you are in the market. Minimum 5 years anyways, you would be in the market. Maximum you can stay for around 10 to 12 years because Power BI would be dominating the market. Now, after 10 years, if you feel that Power BI is not in the market, just an example, I'm trying to take an example, that if you're learning certain product which is not in the market, a different product will come. But if you know SQL, you can learn any other product very easily because somewhere there would be interrelation. Whatever you learned in Power BI, similar things are there in the different products. So what is the future scope? If you want to understand what is the role of a data analyst, what would be the future scope?
Correct.
You are always safe if you know SQL, if you know reporting concepts, not with respect to only Power BI. If you know a basic reporting concepts, you can survive with any tool in the market. Might be Power BI, Tableau, might be ClickView, might be MicroStrategy, might be Google Looker. There are many other tools. The thing is, tool which is dominating the market, we should learn first. That is why we are completely covering Power BI and we are going through the Azure cloud because cloud is must.
So
no
as
classes
a
during. Yeah, go ahead.
no, like thing is like I mean what I trying to understand is with this data analyst role I can't stay like maybe I mean with the experience of after 10 years or 15 years like we can't stay in the same role, right? So
How? Why you feel that?
like it will be a stagnant or like our packages might not be increasing.
Your
That's what I'm
experience?
feeling. I'm having 6 years of experience as an automation tester as of now. So I'm looking for something better. Like, I mean,
What's your salary expectation? Just a simple question, maybe a certain number. See,
yeah,
for
into
this,
three.
into 3 is 80. You can easily
Yeah.
expect, on an average, you can easily expect 25 for the Power BI, on an average. Somewhere people in our batches have also got 30, 35. But the thing is, they are very expertise in SQL. They're very expertise in the cloud related aspect. So depending on your exposure, depending how frequently you manage all these things, your package changes, your experience also, and your package also changes. Now the question is, if you're going beyond the bucket of 30, 35, 25 is average, but let's consider 30. Now you want to increase your package beyond 30, you should know some other technical skills apart from these. So that is where we assume that you should also know some data engineering concepts. If you only know Power BI, if you only know SQL, in that
Hmm.
case, up to 25, 30, you can easily get. But post that,
Okay.
you want to, you want to expertise in some other field, you should start with the data engineering, where your Hadoop, Hive, your Spark, PySpark, Python, all this comes into picture.
Okay. This answers my question. Thank you.
So I have a question from Prashant. I'll only take 1 minute. No classes during weekends, no. 5 days a week, more than enough. You yourself will get bored after 2 or 3 weeks. That how many sessions are there? How many sessions are there? That is what we did not want to happen. That's the reason we have removed that weekend classes. If we would have kept the weekend classes, we could have completed in 2 months also. What is the difference between pro and premium? We will go through that. Now, if I try to explain, it will might confuse you, but pro is $10, premium is $20 per user per month. Pro will have minimum benefits, premium will have comparatively more benefits as compared to pro. There would be number of refreshes would be low in pro, number of refreshes would be high in premium. You can handle high data in premium, you can handle low data in pro with the pro license, Power BI Pro or premium license. Any other questions?
Do you feel that we should be doing any certification post the training? Would that be helpful?
Yes. So if you want to attempt any certification, you're targeting for any certification, you can target for PL 300, Power BI Data Analyst. You can target for DP 600, Fabric Associate. You can target for AZ 900. These are the 3 certifications you can target with the respect to this course. Either you go with PL 300, you can complete all 3 also, you can give any one of them also, you can complete 2 also. It is all up to you. And all 3 certifications would cost you 4,800 Indian rupees.
So the course that you are outlining actually covers all 3 areas, or
yes, PL 300 is with respect to end-to-end Power BI. DP 600 is more into what is Fabric, what is the architecture of Fabric, what all services are present in Fabric, how do you manage that services, how Fabric license is managed. You can go through this Fabric certification. AZ 900 is all about Azure Cloud Fundamentals, which is we would be covering with respect to Azure. So you can target all 3, as I've said. If you can target all 3, that means we would be covering everything with respect to all 3 certifications.
Okay. And what is the span of this training? If you're doing like 5 days a week,
4 months, 5 days week.
4 months.
Now, why 4 months? 1 month for SQL, 2 months for Power BI. Now, whenever we are going through Power BI, we will also cover Fabric here. And whenever we are going with Azure also, which is last 1 month, here also we will cover Fabric. Because we have to cover Fabric in both the conditions, not only in Power BI. With respect to Azure also, we have to cover Fabric. So 1 for SQL, 22 sessions for SQL. 22 is the minimum number. It might increase to 23, 24, 25 also, depending on the speed at which we are covering. Minimum 22 sessions, minimum 38 sessions for Power BI, and minimum 22 sessions for Azure. So just because we are covering 5 days a week, so you assume that within these many number of days, we would be completely closing all 4 months or covering all 4 months by end of June or first week of July. Buffer time we keep first week of July, we would be completing this course.
Okay. And what are the softwares that as a
Power BI you
trainer
can easily download. With respect to SQL, it is MySQL, which is also free source you can download. With respect to cloud, cloud is not a software. Cloud is which you can access from the online website. How to access it, we will show you. How to access Power BI service from our end, email IDs are given, you can activate it. So that won't be a problem.
So you are actually covering only the basics of fundamentals of cloud, right? I mean, on Azure.
No. We are covering Azure Data Factory, which is not fundamental. Azure Data Factory is a complex ETL service. We are covering ADLS, we are covering Key Vault, we are covering AAD, which is Entra ID. These are all not simple services, these are all in-depth services.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I had a very big question from Harshit. I'm currently working as a data analyst fresher, but my long-term goal is to become data engineer since my background is in mechanical engineering. Your, desire or your goal is to become data engineer or a data analyst? I'll again reiterate, data engineering. Okay, let me make it simple for you. Data analyst will have only SQL as a coding. As a data analyst, you will only have SQL. You cannot call it as a coding also end to end, but SQL is what you need to write a command. In case of data engineering, every day you need to write a code. It might be Python, it might be Spark, it might be Hadoop, it might be Hive, it might be any programming language which is used by a data engineer on day-to-day basis. Without programming, there is no data engineering. With only SQL concepts, only where the programming or only where the commands comes into picture, there is no programming going further in data analyst. So you have to decide your career, whether you are interested to learn Python and all this in-depth. In data engineering, you need to learn multiple languages, right? Not only Python. You need to learn Spark also. You need to learn PySpark, combination of Python and Spark. You need to learn Hadoop structure also. You need to learn how Hive Hive structure is getting stored. So all this you have to learn along with SQL. SQL is also there in data engineering. Now you yourself have to decide whether data analyst is best suitable or am I more inclined towards data engineering. From a starting point of view, see, as I've said, you yourself can showcase 3+ years of experience minimum with this course. If you're a fresher, it's a different perspective. You have to create some, your projects. You have to gain trust of that recruiter or person who's trying to take an interview, that I can manage what you would be giving to me. So how to gain trust? We will help you there. But job assistance is there. Job guarantee is a different thing. Job assistance, as I've said, placement cells are conducted on weekly basis. So you attend that placement cells, you will get a more idea about current market. Our team will definitely help. Your resume building is from our end. How to create your LinkedIn profile also I'll show you. How to create your, how should you manage your projects, how projects are managed in the organizations like agile project management. That sessions also we would be covering. So non-technical exposure, which is required apart from all the technical skills, we are also covering that to enter this field. So more than sufficient to start your career. But if you are interested, more inclined towards day-to-day coding your Python, then data engineering is best fit. So you yourself have to decide.
I do have one more question though. You put a lot of importance on SQL, right? Does Power BI need SQL knowledge or?
Yes. We do. If you know SQL, if you know Power BI, see, Power BI is a reporting tool. It's a powerful reporting tool, but somewhere your data should be coming from, right? There might be certain sources. Most of the times people end up using SQL as a source because SQL is where all your information is kept.
But so the world is evolving into a scenario where it's all AI based, and we need not actually know the SQL syntax or to extract data, right? I mean, it's there are a lot of AI tools which sit on top of these, which can be integrated with these tools.
Good question.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, we are also going to cover AI here with respect to Power BI. Let's take an example. You have a bank account. Now, you have a bank account with SBI, and your SBI has a database, SQL database. Now, your bank account has all your secret information. Now, that SBI guy who is working on the database, he's using artificial intelligence on day-to-day basis. Would he share all your information with the artificial intelligence on daily basis? It would be a security breach, right? Yes, AI is there, but how much use of AI is best? We need to understand it. If you use AI to write every single line of code, you can write, you can use it, but it would be a security breach. Again, let me rephrase it. If you want to enter this field of data, wherever you enter, I mean, nowadays, not only data, in whichever field you are entering, AI is present. So we would be covering in Power BI, there is an AI called as Power Q&A and Copilot. So we'll go through that as well. Now the question comes, if you use AI is nothing but it will help you to simplify your work, but it will not take your work. It will not take your end-to-end work. It will not do your end-to-end work. So if you want to enter this field of data, SQL is must. You go to any Power BI interview, you attempt any Power BI interview, 30% of the questions would be related to SQL. You can expect other 70% in Power BI and Azure, or maybe only Power BI also. But 30% questions are related to SQL. That is must. If you directly enter with Power BI, there is no importance. You should know SQL.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, and see, let me rephrase. There are, I mean, now most of you might have dropped. I would have rephrased it earlier. See, let me rephrase. Again, after SQL sessions, we would be starting with Power BI. What trend we observe is, in SQL, rarely 25, 30 students will join. After SQL, if I'm starting with Power BI, 40, 50 students will join in that batch. So if you're planning to join for this Power BI, SQL is must. If you directly join with Power BI also, you would be added to a SQL batch once this complete batch is completed, post 3 months or 4 months. But you should learn SQL. So if you're targeting to join, target to join with SQL, because once we start with SQL, it is very easy to understand Power BI as well. If you directly jump to Power BI, slightly you will feel difficulty. I'm not saying it is totally different, but slight difficulty you will feel because you need to know SQL. And once I cover Power BI, I will directly jump to Data Factory, all the Azure cloud concepts. And then if you feel, you will be again added to the SQL batch who have joined with Power BI. So if you're planning to join with Power BI, plan to join with SQL only right now. Right. Assuming that there are no more questions, we are good for today. Thank you, everyone. We still have 3 more sessions, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. So we will connect back on Monday at same time, 8 a.m. in the morning. You can attend that 3 sessions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in that sessions. We would be starting with SQL coding, rather SQL programming or SQL command, how to write a command. So we'll be starting with that on Monday. Right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. Let's connect back on Monday.
Thank you.